I worked after the John Glenn presidential campaign on the National Space Institute. They are a nonprofit public advocacy organization working to support NASA and exploration. They merged with the L5 Society, and so for 13 years I worked for the National Space Society, whose goal is to create a spacefaring civilization. And as the executive director during the last 9 years of my tenure there, I was testifying before Congress and I was president of Women in Aerospace and doing a lot of visible things where I had met the NASA administrator at that time, Dan Golden. And one day, I actually remember I was in St. Louis, it was the X Prize kickoff, and I got a personal call from Dan Golden and he asked if I would come work for NASA. He said he thought I could do even more on the inside than on the outside. So that's what first brought me to NASA in 1996.
Wow. So what are some of the highlights of your career?
Wow, so many highlights. During that first tenure at NASA, I eventually became the Associate Administrator for Policy. And in that role, had my first trip to Russia with the administrator. And going to Star City in the mid-90s at the end of the Cold War, and seeing how their space program had developed in parallel with ours, when you recognize the absolute, the Cold War was symbolized by the space race. And now we were working hand in glove on our space programs. That was in the Shuttle Mir days. We were working to develop space station cooperatively. We were working with them to usher in a more peaceful relationship globally, and just to be a part of it was amazing. So this fast forward 15 years to the space shuttle launch last year, where we were launching the Russian pallet on the space shuttle from pad 39 at the Kennedy Space Center, and Charlie was over in the Launch Control Center, so I was the senior host of the Russian delegation. That included the Deputy Prime Minister and the head of the Russian Space Agency. And we were watching the launch of the space shuttle that was going to the International Space Station in this cooperative, peaceful way. And as it lifted off, we all had tears flowing down our faces, just recognizing the ultimate value of what we're able to do together on behalf of humanity and how far we've come since the Cold War. For me, I have, that's a real highlight.
Wow, that's really cool. As far as the CCDev program is going, how did the decision come about to switch to the FAR contracting instead of the Space Act agreements?
NASA has been pursuing Space Act agreements for cargo and for the early part of crew because we were developing a capability. And Space Act agreements are clearly the way to advance those capabilities the fastest and the most efficient. As we switch to buying services, we have to use a FAR-based contract. So this is really a policy call of at what point does this end developing a capability and begin buying a service. And so NASA has determined that at this time, if we are able to secure the budget that we've requested, that we're ready to invest in buying a service and therefore requiring a FAR.
This may be too biased of a question, but given the 4 companies that recently won the CCDev 2 round, if given the opportunity, which one would you want to fly on first?
Well, there's certainly, I don't have my thumb on the scale for any of them. I would love to see more than one succeed. I would basically love to see a time when a government employee such as myself could afford any of them.
About the Space Launch System, when it was first announced, they gave a timetable for when the first test launch would occur and then when the first crewed flight would occur. And recently that timetable has moved forward about 2 years. And from my understanding, they said that the original announcement was the worst case scenario for the timetable. And I was just a little bit confused about that, why that wasn't emphasized in the beginning to make people understand that this is the worst case scenario. We may do it sooner, but this may be, it may even be later than that. But can you clarify that a little bit?
My understanding of our schedule for the first launch of the SLS 70 metric ton first version is 2017. If someone believes that has been accelerated, of course we will try, but I don't believe we've committed to anything before 2017, and then the first crewed flight would be 2021. Nothing would make all of us happier than to be able to accelerate those dates. Clearly we know a goal for us has been to meet the dates, but I had not heard that we had moved them up.